CM Punk fans, this is one of those moments where you're definitely going to want to tune in, because Phil Brooks just dropped some huge updates about his WWE future. Today, we're diving deep into his latest comments, and trust me, there's a lot to unpack here. Let's take it all the way back for a second to put this into perspective. Punk left WWE in 2014, and if you remember, when he sat down with Colt Cabana on that infamous podcast, it was clear he was bitter, he was hurt, he was frustrated, but even then, if you listen carefully, Punk didn't rule out a return. In fact, he was still thinking about maybe coming back after WrestleMania. That door wasn't totally closed. What made it slam shut was how the company treated him, firing him on his wedding day, no less. The communication was downright awful. Triple H called him right before his wedding, asking if they could have a conversation, and Punk basically said, "Man, I'm about to get married. I can't do this right now." And Triple H just said, "Okay." No follow-up, no support, just a cold, robotic interaction that pretty much summed up how badly the relationship had deteriorated. Then, boom, he's fired while he's tying the knot. A moment that should have been one of the happiest days of his life ended up being overshadowed by professional betrayal. Fast forward, and Punk has talked over the years about potential talks with WWE about coming back. Fox tried to broker a return when they had the WWE Backstage show, but that never really worked. That show fizzled out. Punk didn't fully commit, and it seemed like the bridge between Punk and WWE was burned forever. Then came AEW, and honestly, it was a train wreck from the jump. It never felt right. It always felt like Punk was a WWE guy at heart, trying to fit into an indie-heavy environment where he just didn't vibe. The chaos behind the scenes, the public fights, the endless drama, it wasn't sustainable, and eventually, that exploded too. Then came the shocker. November 2023. CM Punk makes his return to WWE at Survivor Series, and it was surreal. The moment was electric. Even though the creative direction early on felt a little meandering, it was a lot of hugging, smiling, emotional comebacks, and fans were like, "Okay, can we get to the real stuff now?" And when they finally did, things really clicked. Sure, Punk got injured pretty quickly into his return, which was a gut punch, but what's been really cool is how he stayed involved even while healing up. He stayed in storylines, he kept his rivalries alive, most notably with Seth Rollins and Drew McIntyre. That Drew feud, especially through the summer and fall of 2024, was some of Punk's best work. He really leaned into it, made it personal, made it gritty, and of course, the War Games match against the Bloodline was another highlight. WWE wisely kept Punk visible, kept him woven into the big stories even when he couldn't physically wrestle. By the time we got to WrestleMania 41, we were treated to an absolute classic. CM Punk, Seth Rollins, and Roman Reigns in a triple threat that delivered in every way. It was intense, emotional, unpredictable, the kind of storytelling that wrestling fans live for. All three guys showed up and showed out. Punk came out of that match still entangled with Roman, seemingly forming an uneasy alliance against the likes of Seth Rollins, Braun Breaker, and even Paul Heyman, who once again found himself in the middle of the chaos. Now, as we look ahead, Punk gave an interview recently on the Masked Man show that gave us a lot of insight into his mindset. He was asked about retirement, about how much longer he sees himself doing this, and he was refreshingly honest. He admitted that he knows he can't wrestle forever. He said he talks about this a lot with Randy Orton, who, like Punk, has been through the wars and has the miles on his body. They joke about how they're basically tied when it comes to physical wear and tear. Punk said what keeps him going is the passion. It's not about ego. It's not about clinging to the spotlight. It's about genuinely loving the business. He talked about how Randy Orton is still so enthusiastic, still fired up to wrestle. Not some guy who's limping to the ring with nothing left in the tank but stubborn pride. That resonated with Punk. He looks at Randy and sees someone thriving, someone getting better with age, and it gives him hope that he can do the same. At 46 years old, Punk said he sometimes finishes a match and thinks, "Man, what am I doing?" But just as often, he feels like he's only just getting started. He shared a moment where he turned to Paul Heyman or Triple H, he couldn't remember exactly who, and said, "At 46, I think I'm finally starting to understand this business." That's a powerful statement. Wrestling isn't just bumps and bruises. It's storytelling, psychology, character work, and Punk feels sharper now than he ever has mentally. Physically, he knows there are limits, that's just reality, but mentally, he's in the best place he's ever been. He also hinted that there's life in wrestling beyond taking bumps. Maybe managing, maybe commentary, maybe creative, who knows? The door is open to different possibilities. WWE, on their end, apparently wants him to sign a 5-year deal. Punk said he's hesitant about that. He didn't shoot it down entirely, but you could tell he's cautious. 5 years is a big commitment, especially at this stage of his career. Another fascinating point Punk brought up was WWE's pay structure. He noted that while everyone's making really good money, no doubt about that, there's still a sense that performers could be earning more, especially when you consider how hot the business is right now. WWE is on fire, selling out shows, smashing merchandise records, breaking attendance records, and yet the wrestlers are all on salaries. Punk reminisced about the old days where you had a downside guarantee, but your upside was limitless based on how well you drew. If you were hot, you made bank. If you were cold, you still had that baseline salary. Now, it's just straight salary, which has its pros and cons. Punk pointed out that sure, it's great for stability, but when business is booming, you don't necessarily see those crazy paydays the way you used to. He said flat out that at 46, he doesn't need the money anymore. That's not what's driving him. He's doing this because he loves it, because he still has something to say, because he still feels like he has stories to tell inside the squared circle. And let's be real, love him or hate him, there's nobody quite like CM Punk when it comes to storytelling in wrestling. What's really interesting is that you can tell there's a little regret in Punk's voice when he talks about his absence from wrestling. Not necessarily regret that he left WWE when he did, because at the time, it was probably the only option he felt he had, but maybe regret that he stayed away from wrestling for as long as he did. There's a sense that he feels like he could have been doing this amazing work years earlier if the stars had aligned differently. But honestly, maybe it all worked out for the best. If he had come back under Vince McMahon, it might have been a mess. The creative process wasn't great. The locker room culture was toxic. Triple H being in charge has made all the difference. There's mutual respect now. There's open communication. Punk admitted that early on. He'd just go along with ideas he didn't love, saying yeah, that's fine, even if it wasn't. Triple H called him out on that, told him to be honest, to collaborate, to trust the process, and Punk has responded. He's thrived. The AEW run? It always felt awkward. Punk was the biggest star in the room, but he didn't fit the vibe. It was a strange experiment that blew up spectacularly. WWE is where he belongs. He's a WWE guy. Always has been. Always will be. Sure, he had a legendary indie career. Sure, Ring of Honor fans will always cherish the summer of Punk, but to the vast majority of fans, Punk became a star in WWE. That's where he won titles. That's where he made history. That's where he became a household name. Now, moving forward, it looks like the plan might be for Punk to team with Roman Reigns at Backlash, possibly against Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker, with Paul Heyman playing some kind of manipulative role. But honestly, it's all up in the air. Punk's future is wide open, and that's exciting. Will he sign that 5-year deal? Will he transition into a part-time role? Will he eventually move into a behind-the-scenes position? It's too soon to say, but one thing is clear, CM Punk still has a lot left to give. His story in WWE is far from over, and for fans who have been on this roller coaster ride with him since 2014, it's going to be incredible to see where this next chapter leads. Let me know what you guys think about Punk's comments. Do you want him to wrestle for 5 more years? Would you rather see him transition into a manager or commentator role? Drop your thoughts below because this conversation is just getting started.